You're so awkward that everyone feels uncomfortable. Don't come." My mother's words echoed in my head as I sat cross-legged on my living room floor in Portland, Oregon, surrounded by travel brochures. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting warm patterns on the hardwood floors of my apartment. I should have been preparing for my sister's wedding, but instead, I was planning an escape to Paris. My name is Kayla, and I had just turned 27 the week before. For most of my life, I had been the family disappointment, the daughter who never quite measured up to my younger sister Vanessa's sparkling presence. While she glided through life collecting achievements and admirers, I stumbled through mine with social anxiety and a tendency to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. The phone call from my mother had come 3 days earlier, delivered in that particular tone she reserved for me, part exasperation, part embarrassment. Vanessa was marrying Wesley, a real estate developer whose family owned half the waterfront properties in Seattle. The wedding would be a lavish affair at a historic estate, with 200 guests dressed in designer clothes, sipping champagne that cost more than my monthly rent. "We've discussed it as a family," my mother had said, her voice tight. "Vanessa's concerned about the impression you'll make. You know how you get at social events, Kayla. The stammering, the awkward silences. Wesley's family is very particular about appearances, and this day needs to be perfect." I had wanted to argue, to defend myself, to point out that I was her daughter too. But the words caught in my throat the way they always did when I tried to stand up to her. Instead, I whispered, "I understand," and ended the call before the tears started. My best friend Zoe had found me crying in my cubicle at the insurance company where we both worked as claims adjusters. She listened to the whole story while rubbing circles on my back, her face growing more indignant with each detail. "That's absolutely cruel," she said firmly. "You're her sister. You should be there." "Maybe they're right," I murmured, wiping my eyes. "I am awkward. I do make people uncomfortable." "Stop that right now." Zoe gripped my shoulders, forcing me to meet her eyes. "You're thoughtful and kind. Just because you're not loud and flashy like Vanessa doesn't mean you're less worthy." But Zoe's words couldn't erase a lifetime of feeling like I didn't belong in my own family. My father, a successful surgeon, had always been distant, more interested in his golf handicap than his daughters. My mother, obsessed with status and appearances, had poured all her attention into Vanessa, the daughter who reflected well on her. And Vanessa herself had learned early that pushing me aside earned her more spotlight. So instead of fighting for my place at a wedding where I wasn't wanted, I had made a different choice. I booked a flight to Paris, departing the morning of Vanessa's wedding. I would spend the day wandering through the Louvre, eating croissants at sidewalk cafes, and pretending I was someone else, someone confident and free. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Vanessa wants to make sure you're not planning to show up uninvited. Please confirm." I typed back, "I'll be out of the country. Have a beautiful day." There was no response. No attempt to convince me otherwise. No last-minute change of heart. Just silence, which told me everything I needed to know. I purchased my plane ticket that evening, watching my savings account dwindle as I clicked the confirmation button. It was impulsive and expensive, but the idea of being an ocean away when my sister married into wealth and status felt necessary for my survival. I couldn't watch from the sidelines as my family celebrated without me, as they smiled for photos that would exclude me from their history. Zoe helped me plan the trip, her enthusiasm gradually lifting my spirits. We mapped out museums, restaurants, and parks. She insisted I buy a new dress, something beautiful that would make me feel special, even if I was alone. "You deserve to have your own celebration," she said as we shopped. "Who cares about some stuffy wedding? You'll be in Paris." The night before my flight, I packed carefully, folding the navy blue dress Zoe had helped me choose, adding the worn paperback of a novel I had been meaning to read. I included a small journal, thinking maybe I would document this trip, this act of choosing myself for once. As I zipped my suitcase closed, my phone lit up with a notification. It was an Instagram post from Vanessa, a photo of her and Wesley looking radiant, with a caption about their upcoming wedding and eternal love. The comments were flooded with heart emojis and congratulations. I scrolled through them, recognizing names of cousins, family friends, and distant relatives who would all be there to witness her perfect day. I closed the app quickly, my chest tight with an emotion I couldn't quite name. It wasn't jealousy exactly, though there was a trace of that. It was more like grief for the relationship we had never had, for the family that had never quite felt like mine. The morning of my departure arrived with clear skies and unseasonably warm weather. I caught an early train to the airport, my suitcase rolling beside me, my heart lighter than it had been in weeks. I was doing something for myself, something bold. But as I settled into my seat on the plane, watching Portland disappear below me, I couldn't shake a strange feeling of foreboding, as if I were missing something important that I couldn't yet see. The flight to Paris was long, but peaceful. I watched 3 movies I had been meaning to see, dozed fitfully against the window, and tried not to check the time constantly. Somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, Vanessa would be walking down the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than my car. My mother would be crying tears of joy. My father would be standing proud, his successful daughter marrying into exactly the kind of family he approved of. And I was 30,000 feet in the air, running away. I arrived in Paris as the sun was rising, painting the city in shades of pink and gold. The taxi driver who brought me to my small hotel near the Latin Quarter spoke broken English and pointed out landmarks as we drove. The city was more beautiful than I had imagined, all elegant architecture and tree-lined boulevards. After checking in and taking a quick shower to wash away the travel fatigue, I changed into comfortable clothes and headed out. The wedding would be happening in about 6 hours, mid-afternoon Seattle time, early evening in Paris. I planned to be deep in the Louvre by then, surrounded by art and tourists, too distracted to imagine what I was missing. The morning passed in a pleasant blur. I wandered through the Jardin du Luxembourg, watching children sail toy boats in the fountain. I stopped at a bakery where the woman behind the counter smiled warmly at my terrible French and gave me an extra macaron with my coffee. I walked along the Seine, taking photos of Notre Dame and the bridges, collecting moments to prove I was having a wonderful time. But underneath the surface pleasure, there was a hollow ache. I kept thinking about Vanessa, wondering if she had noticed my absence, if anyone had asked where I was. Probably not. My mother had likely told everyone I was sick or busy with work. It would be easier than admitting they had uninvited me. Growing up, Vanessa and I had been different from the start. She was born beautiful, with our mother's delicate features and thick, shiny hair. She was naturally charismatic, able to charm adults and make friends effortlessly. I, on the other hand, had inherited my father's height and plain features. I was clumsy at social gatherings, more comfortable with books than people. Our mother had made no secret of her favoritism. Vanessa got the best clothes, the bigger bedroom, the first choice of everything. When I tried to object, my mother would sigh and say, "Don't be difficult, Kayla. You know Vanessa has more opportunities. We're just being practical." The opportunities she referenced were modeling auditions, beauty pageants, and social events where Vanessa's looks could be displayed. I was expected to fade into the background, to be grateful for hand-me-downs and whatever attention was left over. My father, busy with his surgical practice, barely noticed the inequality. When I tried to talk to him about it once, he patted my head absently and said, "You're both my daughters. Now let me read my journal in peace." The only person who had ever made me feel valued was my grandmother on my father's side. She had lived with us during my childhood, and she saw how the family dynamics hurt me. She would take me on special outings, just the two of us, and tell me I was smart and interesting. "Don't let them make you small," she whispered to me once. "You have your own light, Kayla. Don't let anyone dim it. She died when I was 15, and I felt like I lost my only ally. After that, I retreated further into myself, counting down the days until I could leave home for college. When I finally did, moving into a dorm 3 hours away, I felt like I could breathe for the first time. But even distance didn't erase the patterns. Vanessa still got the praise, the attention, the love. I got obligation and disappointment. Family dinners became exercises in feeling invisible, as everyone celebrated Vanessa's latest accomplishment. When I graduated college with honors, my mother spent the dinner talking about Vanessa's new boyfriend. When I got my job at the insurance company, my father asked when I was planning to do something more impressive. Wesley had entered Vanessa's life 8 months ago. They met at a charity event, of course, where she was volunteering to look good, and he was networking. My mother had been thrilled. A wealthy man from a prominent family, exactly what she had been grooming Vanessa for. I had met Wesley only once, at a family dinner my mother insisted I attend. He was handsome in a generic way, with practiced charm and a firm handshake. He barely acknowledged me, focusing all his attention on Vanessa and my parents. At one point, I tried to join the conversation, and he looked at me with confusion, as if he had forgotten I existed. Vanessa had glowed beside him, soaking up the admiration. When I left early, claiming a headache, no one tried to stop me. The engagement had happened quickly, followed by wedding planning that consumed my mother entirely. Every phone call was about flowers, venues, and guest lists. When I asked if I could help, my mother said, "We have it handled. You'd probably just stress Vanessa out." And now here I was, in Paris, because even my presence at the wedding was considered a liability. By early afternoon Paris time, I made my way to the Louvre. The museum was crowded with tourists, all of us shuffling through the grand halls, craning our necks to see the famous paintings. I stood in front of the Mona Lisa, surrounded by dozens of other people taking selfies, and felt overwhelmingly alone. I pulled out my phone, intending to distract myself with something mindless. That's when I opened Instagram, curious despite myself about what I was missing. And that's when my entire world shifted. The first post I saw was from my cousin Jennifer, posted 20 minutes earlier. It was a video, shaky and obviously filmed on a phone in a hurry. The caption read, "OMG, you guys won't believe what just happened at Vanessa's wedding." My stomach dropped as I clicked on it. The video showed the wedding reception, the elegant ballroom filled with round tables draped in ivory linens. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and I could see the elaborate floral centerpieces my mother had spent months selecting. In the foreground, I could hear the buzz of confused, excited voices. Then the camera focused on the center of the room, where my mother stood facing Wesley. Her face was red, and even through the small phone screen, I could see she was upset. Wesley's face was contorted with anger, his posture aggressive. Vanessa stood to the side, her white dress brilliant against the chaos, her hands covering her mouth in horror. I turned up the volume, pressing the phone close to my ear to hear over the museum noise around me. "You think you can dictate to me?" Wesley's voice was sharp, cutting. "You're nobody. Your entire family is nobody. How dare you speak to me that way?" My mother shot back, her voice shrill. "After everything we've done to welcome you into this family." "Welcome me?" Wesley laughed, harsh and mocking. "You've been kissing up to me since day one because you know Vanessa's lucky I even looked at her. She's pretty. I'll give her that, but that's all she's got. And you, parading around here like you're somebody important because you managed to marry a doctor and raise a daughter who can smile on command." The crowd in the video had gone silent, all eyes on the confrontation. I could see guests pulling out their phones, recording from multiple angles. My mother's face had gone pale. "You need to apologize right now. This is my daughter's wedding day." "Your daughter?" Wesley stepped closer, his voice dripping with contempt. "Your daughter is a shallow, spoiled brat who's been raised to think her looks are enough. Well, let me tell you something about your perfect family. Wesley, please. Vanessa's voice cut in, desperate and thin. Shut up, Vanessa, he snapped without looking at her. I'm done pretending. What happened next seemed to occur in slow motion. My mother reached out, perhaps to grab Wesley's arm, perhaps just to gesture. He jerked back, and I actually gasped in the middle of the Louvre, drawing stares from nearby tourists. He spat directly in her face. The sound of shock rippled through the wedding guests in the video. My mother stood frozen, spittle dripping down her cheek, her expression one of absolute disbelief. Vanessa let out a sound that was half scream, half sob. You're all pathetic, Wesley said, his voice clear in the stunned silence. And this wedding is over. He turned and strode out of the frame. The video ended with my mother still standing motionless, guests rushing toward her with napkins, my father appearing from somewhere, his face purple with rage. I stared at my phone screen, unable to process what I had just witnessed. My hands were shaking. People bumped into me as they moved past, but I barely noticed. I clicked on the comments, which had already multiplied. This is insane! Did he really just spit on the bride's mom? Who even is this guy? The mother looks so shocked. This is awful. Wedding of the year for all the wrong reasons. I backed out and searched for Vanessa's account. She had posted nothing new. But dozens of people had tagged her in the video, which was spreading rapidly. I found 3 more versions of it from different angles, each showing the same horrifying moment. My phone rang, making me jump. It was Zoe. Kayla, are you seeing this? She said as soon as I answered. It's everywhere. Someone I went to high school with just shared it, and she doesn't even know your family. I just watched it, I said, my voice strange to my own ears. Zoe, he spat on my mother, in front of everyone. It's already going viral. There are memes starting. This is going to be huge. I felt dizzy. I found a bench along the museum wall and sat down heavily, still clutching my phone. I should call them. I don't know what I should do. What can you do? You're in Paris. She was right. And yet, I felt guilty for being away, even though I had been pushed away. I felt guilty for the tiny spark of vindication in my chest, the whisper that said, they wanted a perfect wedding without me, and look what they got instead. As I sat there, more notifications flooded in. The video was being shared across platforms. News sites were starting to pick it up. Within an hour, it had a trending hashtag, Wedding Spitgate. My phone rang again. This time it was my father. I stared at his name on the screen, my finger hovering over the answer button. He had never called me just to talk, only when my mother made him, or when he needed something. What could I possibly say to him right now? I let it go to voicemail. Then my mother called. Then Vanessa. Then my mother again. I watched each call go unanswered, feeling like I was watching my old life collapse from a safe distance. Around me, tourists continued their museum visit, oblivious to my crisis. A family took photos near me, the children laughing. A couple argued in French about which gallery to visit next. Life went on, indifferent. I looked back at my phone, at the frozen frame of my mother's face with spit sliding down her cheek, at Wesley's expression of pure contempt, at Vanessa's horror-stricken eyes, and I thought, everything is about to change. I finally answered my mother's call on her 5th attempt. By then, I had left the Louvre and was sitting in a small cafe near my hotel, nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold while I watched my phone light up repeatedly. Kayla. Her voice was raw, stripped of its usual composed superiority. Where are you? I told you. I'm in Paris. You need to come home. Right now. I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the spoon create small whirlpools. Why would I do that? Don't be difficult. The familiar edge crept back into her tone. Your sister needs you. This family needs you. Funny how that works, I said quietly. The family that didn't want me at the wedding suddenly needs me when things fall apart. This is not the time for your self-pity. Do you have any idea what we're dealing with? That video has been viewed millions of times. Millions, Kayla. Your father's practice is getting calls. Vanessa is hysterical. We're being harassed online. And where are you? Hiding in France like a coward. Something inside me snapped. A coward? You told me not to come. You said I was too awkward, too embarrassing. You said I would ruin Vanessa's perfect day. I never said that. Yes, you did. 3 days ago. You said everyone would be uncomfortable if I attended. There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted to the manipulative sweetness she used when she wanted something. Kayla, honey, I think you misunderstood. I was just concerned about you feeling overwhelmed by such a large event. You know how anxious you get. Don't gaslight me. I know exactly what you said. Well, regardless of past conversations, we need you now. Vanessa is devastated. She's locked herself in her old bedroom and won't come out. Your father is barely holding it together. And Her voice cracked convincingly. I'm humiliated. That man spat on me in front of everyone I know. My friends, our family, business associates. Everyone saw. I should have felt sympathy. This was my mother, hurt and publicly humiliated, but all I felt was a strange numbness. What do you want me to do about it? Come home, talk to Vanessa, help us figure out how to handle this media nightmare. Show the world we're a united family. A united family, I repeated slowly. The family that excludes me until they need damage control. Kayla, please, I'm begging you. She had never begged me for anything in my life. The sound of it should have moved me, but instead, it felt hollow, performative. She didn't want me. She wanted a solution to her problem. I'll think about it, I said. I have to go. Kayla, wait. I ended the call and blocked all their numbers. Then I ordered a glass of wine even though it was barely 3 p.m. The waiter brought it with a sympathetic smile, as if he could sense my distress. For the next hour, I scrolled through the coverage of what was being called the wedding spit scandal. News outlets had picked it up. Entertainment websites were dissecting every moment. People were analyzing Wesley's words, my mother's reaction, Vanessa's horror. Some comments were sympathetic to my family. Others were brutal. The mother looked so arrogant, probably deserved it. Rich people problems lol. That poor bride, though, imagine your wedding becoming a meme. The groom is clearly unstable, but that family seems toxic too. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. A gossip website had done some digging into Wesley's background. According to their investigation, he had a history of volatile behavior. A previous girlfriend had filed a restraining order against him 2 years ago, claiming he had threatened her. He had been fired from his previous real estate firm for aggressive behavior toward colleagues. His family's wealth had apparently helped bury these incidents. My mother had been so dazzled by his money and status that she had never bothered to check who Vanessa was actually marrying. Or maybe she had known and didn't care, as long as Vanessa married rich. I took a screenshot of the article and stared at it. This information changed things. My sister, for all her shallow priorities and complicity in my exclusion, was tied to a man who might be dangerous. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Kayla? It was Vanessa, her voice thick with crying. She must have borrowed someone's phone. Please don't hang up. I didn't say anything. I know you hate me, she continued, words tumbling out in a rush. I know we treated you terribly. I know I should have stood up for you about the wedding. But please, please come home. I don't know what to do. Wesley texted me that he's coming back tonight and we need to talk, and I'm scared, Kayla. I'm really scared. Then don't see him. Stay at Mom and Dad's. You don't understand. He has a key to my apartment. He knows where everything is. He's been calling and texting nonstop, and the things he's saying. Her voice broke. I thought I knew him. He was always so charming, so perfect. But the things he said at the wedding, the way he looked at all of us like we were nothing. Did you know about his past? The restraining order? The job he lost? Silence. Then, what are you talking about? I sent her the article. I heard her sharp intake of breath as she read it. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, Kayla, I had no idea. Mom and Dad did all the background stuff. They said he was perfect. They said his family was... They saw money and status and stopped looking. Vanessa was crying harder now. I need you. Please. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm your sister. I'm scared of what he might do. I closed my eyes, wrestling with competing emotions. Part of me wanted to tell her to figure it out herself, to let her experience what it felt like to be abandoned by family. But another part, the part that remembered us as children before everything got complicated, couldn't ignore her fear. I'll see what I can do, I said finally. But Vanessa, I'm not coming back to play happy family and pretend everything is fine. If I come back, things are going to be different. Anything. I'll do anything. Just please help me. After we hung up, I sat for a long time watching the Parisian street life flow past my cafe table. Couples holding hands, tourists studying maps, locals hurrying home from work. Normal life continuing obliviously while my world rearranged itself. I pulled up flight information on my phone. There was a flight leaving tomorrow morning that would get me back to Portland by evening. It was expensive to change my ticket, but I had my credit card. As I booked it, I felt something shift inside me. I was going back, but not as the embarrassed daughter trying to make herself smaller. I was going back with information, with leverage, with a clearer view of exactly who my family was. And maybe, just maybe, I was going back to finally stand up for myself. The flight home felt different from the flight to Paris. I wasn't running away this time. I was running towards something, though I wasn't entirely sure what. I spent most of the journey researching, my laptop open to multiple tabs about Wesley, his family, and the various news stories that had spawned from the wedding video. What I discovered painted a disturbing picture. Wesley's family wealth came from his grandfather, who had built a real estate empire in the 1970s. But Wesley himself was the youngest son, often overlooked in favor of his more accomplished older brothers. His position in the family company was largely ceremonial, a title with no real power. He had bounced between various roles, leaving each one under murky circumstances. The restraining order from his ex-girlfriend included details that made my stomach turn. She described him as charming initially, then increasingly controlling and aggressive. He would fly into rages over minor issues, then apologize extravagantly with expensive gifts. The final incident that led to the restraining order involved him showing up at her workplace and causing a scene when she tried to end things. I found her social media profile. She had deleted most old posts, but there was one from a year ago. 1 year free from toxicity. If you're in a relationship where you feel afraid, please know you deserve better. Leaving was the hardest and best thing I ever did. I took more screenshots, building a file of information. If Wesley was as volatile as he appeared, my family was going to need more than damage control. They were going to need protection. When I landed in Portland, it was raining, the kind of persistent drizzle that characterizes Pacific Northwest autumns. I took a rideshare directly to my parents' house, a sprawling colonial in an upscale suburb where every lawn was manicured and every car was expensive. My mother answered the door looking haggard. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back messily, and she wore no makeup. For the first time in my life, she looked old. "You came," she said, and there might have been genuine relief in her voice. "Where's Vanessa?" "Upstairs. She hasn't left her room since yesterday. Your father is at the office trying to manage the fallout. His practice has been flooded with calls from reporters." I walked past her without waiting for an invitation. The house looked the same as always. Tastefully decorated, immaculate, cold. I climbed the stairs to Vanessa's childhood bedroom, the largest room on the second floor, the one with the best view. I knocked. "Vanessa, it's Kayla." The door opened immediately. My sister looked terrible. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair tangled. She was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. No makeup, no jewelry. I had never seen her look so undone. "You're really here," she said, and then she hugged me. I stood stiffly, not returning the embrace at first, but her shoulders were shaking, and she was sobbing into my shoulder, and despite everything, she was still my sister. My arms came up slowly, awkwardly, and patted her back. "Come in," she said, pulling away and wiping her eyes. "I need to tell you everything." We sat on her bed, the same bed she had lounged on years ago while talking on the phone to friends, ignoring me when I tried to join her. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Wesley's been texting me constantly," she began, showing me her phone. The messages were a disturbing mix of rage and manipulation. Some called her worthless and stupid. Others apologized profusely and begged for another chance. Some were threatening in vague, unsettling ways. "I'm coming over tonight whether you like it or not. We need to talk face to face. You're making this worse by ignoring me. I know where you are." "I love you so much, baby. I was just stressed. Your mom provoked me. Give me a chance to explain. You're going to regret treating me this way." I felt cold reading them. "Have you responded to any of these?" I told him to leave me alone. That made him angrier. "You need to go to the police, get a restraining order." "With what evidence? He hasn't actually threatened me directly. And his family, Kayla, his family is powerful. They have lawyers, connections. Mom and Dad are terrified of them suing us for defamation or something." "Defamation? He's the one who spat on Mom in front of 200 witnesses." "I know. But his family is claiming he was provoked, that Mom said something offensive first. They're trying to spin this as him being the victim of our social climbing." I laughed bitterly. "That's rich. Mom has been social climbing since the day she married Dad." Vanessa looked at me with an expression I had never seen from her before. Honest acknowledgement. "I know. I've always known. But I thought that's just how life worked. You marry someone successful, you present the right image, and everything works out. That's what Mom taught me. And look where it got you." She flinched, but didn't argue. "I saw the articles you sent. About his ex-girlfriend, the restraining order. I can't believe I didn't know. I can't believe Mom and Dad didn't check. They saw what they wanted to see. Money, status, the right family name. They were so excited to marry you off to someone impressive that they didn't bother looking deeper. Just like they were so excited to have me be the pretty, popular daughter that they didn't care about anything else." Vanessa twisted her hands in her lap. "I know I've been awful to you, Kayla. I know I went along with Mom treating you like you didn't matter. It was easier to be the favorite than to stand up for what was right." "Yes, it was easier," I agreed. "And now you're paying the price for building your life on shallow foundations." "I know." She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For everything. For every time I got the bigger room, the better clothes, the attention. For every time I let Mom exclude you or put you down. For the wedding. God, Kayla, I should never have agreed to you not being there. You're my sister. I wanted to say I forgive you. I wanted to hug her and tell her we would fix this together. But years of hurt don't evaporate with one apology, no matter how sincere. I'm not here to absolve you," I said quietly. "I'm here because you're scared and you asked for help. But Vanessa, when this is over, we're going to have some serious conversations about our family and how we treat each other." "I know. I want that. I want to be better." Before I could respond, we heard shouting from downstairs. Male voices, one of them frighteningly familiar from the wedding video. Wesley had arrived. Vanessa grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in painfully. "He's not supposed to be here. How did he get in?" We crept to the top of the stairs and looked down. Wesley stood in the foyer, facing my mother. My father had apparently just come home and was standing between them, his face flushed with anger. "Get out of my house," my father was saying, his voice tight and controlled in that surgeon way he had when he was furious but trying not to show it. "I need to see Vanessa," Wesley said. He was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled, his hair messy. He looked like he hadn't slept. "She's not answering my calls. I need to explain. You spat on my wife. At my daughter's wedding. You humiliated our entire family. You have exactly 10 seconds to leave before I call the police." Wesley laughed, and the sound made my skin crawl. The police? And tell them what? That I had a disagreement with my mother-in-law? That I got upset at my own wedding? You assaulted her. Is that what she's calling it? Interesting, since she's the one who grabbed me first. I was defending myself. "That's a lie," my mother shrieked. "I never touched you. You're disgusting, you're—" "Careful," Wesley said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "You might want to watch what you say. My family has very good lawyers. We could make things very difficult for you. For all of you." I felt Vanessa trembling beside me. I pulled out my phone and started recording, angling it to capture the scene below. Whatever happened next, we were going to have evidence. "Are you threatening us?" my father asked. "I'm stating facts. You've all been slandering me online, sharing that video, making me look like a monster. But what people don't see is what led up to that moment. What your wife said about my family. How she insulted my mother, suggested we weren't good enough for precious Vanessa." "I never," my mother started. "You absolutely did. You spent months dropping little comments about how we should be grateful to be connected to your family, how your husband the surgeon and your beautiful daughter were such prizes. You treated me like hired help at my own wedding." "That's not true," my father said, but there was less certainty in his voice. "Isn't it? But here's the thing. None of that matters now. What matters is that Vanessa and I are married. Legally married. And I want to see my wife." "The marriage isn't valid," my mother said quickly. "You walked out before the ceremony was finished, before signing the papers." Wesley smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Actually, we signed the marriage license that morning at the courthouse. A little insurance policy, you might say. So yes, Vanessa is legally my wife, and I have every right to see her." The words hit like a physical blow. I saw my parents' faces go slack with shock. Beside me, Vanessa made a small, wounded sound. "You said we would do it at the wedding," she whispered to me. "He said doing it at the courthouse first was just a formality for paperwork, that the real marriage was the ceremony. I thought it was romantic, spontaneous. I didn't tell anyone because he said it should be our secret." My mind raced through the implications. If they were legally married, everything became more complicated. Divorce would take time. Wesley could claim rights to anything Vanessa owned. And in the meantime, he could make all their lives miserable. Unless an idea was forming, risky and possibly brilliant. But I needed more information first. I handed my phone to Vanessa, still recording, and whispered, "Keep filming. Don't let him see you." Then I walked downstairs. "Who the hell are you?" Wesley asked when he saw me. "I'm Kayla, the other daughter, the one who wasn't important enough to invite to the wedding." My parents stared at me like I had appeared out of thin air. My mother looked terrified, my father confused. "Kayla, go back upstairs," my father said. "No, I want to hear what Wesley has to say." I turned to him, keeping my voice calm and level. "You're right that my mother can be difficult. She absolutely cares too much about status and appearances. But spitting on her? That was quite a choice. She pushed me too far. By saying what, exactly? What did she say that justified that reaction? He hesitated, and I saw the lie forming. She insulted my mother. Your mother who wasn't at the wedding? Another hesitation. She insulted my family. Can you be specific? Because there are a dozen videos of that incident from different angles, and in all of them, the audio is pretty clear. She said, "After everything we've done to welcome you into this family, that's what set you off? You weren't there. You don't know what happened before the cameras started rolling." You're right, I wasn't there. Because my mother told me not to come. Because I'm awkward and embarrassing and would make everyone uncomfortable. I let that hang in the air. But here's what I do know. I know about Jessica, your ex-girlfriend, the restraining order. Wesley's face went very still. I know about the job you lost at Davidson Properties for threatening a coworker. I know about the drunk driving charge that your family's lawyers made disappear. I know that you're the disappointment of your family, the son who can't live up to his brothers, who was given a fake position to keep you busy and out of trouble. You don't know anything, he said, but his voice had lost its confidence. I know that you saw Vanessa as a prize, a beautiful, naive woman from a family desperate to marry her off to money. I know you love-bombed her, isolated her from her friends, and made her dependent on your approval. Classic abuser tactics. I love Vanessa. You love controlling her. There's a difference. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshots I had taken of his text messages to Vanessa. These don't read like love. They read like obsession and rage. He lunged toward me, and my father immediately stepped between us. Don't you dare touch her. Get out of my way. No, you're leaving. Now. Wesley looked around at all of us, his face twisted with fury and something else. Panic. He was losing control of the situation, and he knew it. Vanessa, he shouted toward the stairs. Vanessa, get down here. We're leaving. She's not going anywhere with you, I said calmly. In fact, she's filing for an annulment based on fraud. You lied about your background. You manipulated her into a courthouse marriage without proper disclosure. Any judge will grant it. You can't do this. We can, and we will. And if you come near her again, if you text her, call her, or show up anywhere she might be, we'll file for a restraining order. And unlike when Jessica did it, this time it will be very public. The same media that's been covering your wedding disaster will be all over the story of the abusive groom. Wesley's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually hit someone. But then he seemed to deflate, seeing that he had lost this round. This isn't over, he said, his voice low and threatening. My family will destroy all of you. Your family is probably thrilled to be rid of you, I replied. Now leave before I call the police myself. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. We all stood frozen for a moment in the aftermath, the silence almost worse than the shouting. Then Vanessa appeared at the top of the stairs, still holding my phone, still recording. I got everything, she said, her voice shaking but determined. Every word. And just like that, we had our evidence. The next morning, I woke up on the couch in my parents' living room, sunlight streaming through the large windows. My back ached from the uncomfortable position, but my mind felt clearer than it had in years. Vanessa was still asleep upstairs, exhausted from the emotional turmoil of the previous day. My parents were in the kitchen, their voices low and tense. I sat up and checked my phone. The wedding video had now been viewed over 15 million times. Wesley's name was trending on social media. More importantly, 3 other women had come forward with their own stories about him. They had seen the news coverage and decided to speak up about their experiences with his controlling, aggressive behavior. I screenshot everything and sent it to the lawyer I had researched on the plane, a woman named Patricia who specialized in cases involving coercive control and domestic abuse. She had already responded to my initial email, agreeing to take Vanessa's case. My mother appeared in the doorway, holding a coffee mug. "You're awake." "Barely." I stood and stretched. "We need to talk. All of us." She nodded and called up to Vanessa and my father. 20 minutes later, we were all seated around the dining room table where I had eaten countless silent dinners growing up, where I had been ignored and overlooked and made to feel small. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, taking control before anyone else could speak. "Vanessa is going to meet with Patricia, the attorney I found this afternoon. We're filing for an annulment based on fraud and coercion. We have the video from last night, we have his text messages, and we have statements from his ex-girlfriend and the other women who have come forward." "What if his family retaliates?" my father asked. "Let them try. With this much public attention, any legal action they take will be scrutinized. They're more likely to want this to go away quietly than to drag it out in court." "And the media?" my mother asked. "How do we handle them?" "We don't hide. We tell the truth." I looked at Vanessa. "You're going to give one interview, carefully controlled, with a reputable journalist. You're going to tell your story about being manipulated and deceived. You're going to be the sympathetic bride who discovered her groom was not who he claimed to be." "I don't know if I can do that," Vanessa said quietly. "You can, and you will. Because right now, you're just a punchline in a viral video. But if you take control of your narrative, you become a survivor, someone other women can relate to." My mother was studying me with an expression I had never seen before, something like respect. "When did you become so capable?" "I always was. You just never bothered to notice." The words hung in the air. My father looked uncomfortable. Vanessa stared at her hands. My mother's face flushed, but for once, she didn't argue. "You're right," my mother said finally, her voice barely audible. "I never saw you clearly. I was so focused on Vanessa, on the life I wanted for her, that I failed you as a mother. I hadn't expected an admission." "Yes, you did." "I'm sorry, Kayla. Truly sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I see it now. How badly we treated you. How unfair it all was." Vanessa reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm sorry, too. For everything." I looked at both of them, these women who had shaped so much of my pain. Part of me wanted to reject their apologies, to make them hurt the way they had hurt me. But another part, the part that was tired of carrying all this anger, wanted to try something different. "I'm not ready to say everything is forgiven," I said carefully, "but I'm willing to work towards something better. If you're actually willing to change." "We are," Vanessa said. "I promise we are." My father cleared his throat. "Kayla, I owe you an apology as well. I was absent when you needed a father. I let your mother dictate how our family operated, and I didn't protect you from her favoritism. That was wrong. Yes, it was." I met his eyes. "But like I told them, I'm willing to try if you're willing to be different." He nodded, looking older and more uncertain than I had ever seen him. "Good. Then let's get to work." I pulled out my laptop. "I've been up since 5 a.m. making a plan. Patricia can see Vanessa at 2 p.m. today. I've also reached out to Lauren, a journalist I trust who works for a major news outlet. She's interested in an exclusive interview with Vanessa, but we need to move fast before someone else gets the story." "How do you know all these people?" my mother asked. "I've been building my own life while you weren't paying attention. I have connections, skills, and capabilities you never bothered to ask about." Over the next several hours, we executed the plan. Vanessa met with Patricia, who immediately filed the annulment paperwork and began gathering evidence. I coached Vanessa on what to say in the interview, helping her find her voice while keeping the message clear and sympathetic. That evening, Lauren arrived at the house with a small camera crew. She was professional and kind, putting Vanessa at ease immediately. The interview lasted an hour, with Vanessa speaking honestly about how Wesley had manipulated her, how the courthouse marriage had been presented as romantic spontaneity rather than the control tactic it actually was, and how she was grateful the truth had come out before it was too late. "I want other women to know that abuse doesn't always look like what you think it does," Vanessa said to the camera, tears streaming down her face. "Sometimes it's charming and looks like love. Sometimes it comes from wealthy, respectable families. And sometimes you don't see it until something breaks the illusion." When it was over, Lauren thanked us and promised the piece would air within 48 hours. "This is going to be powerful," she said. "You're very brave." After she left, Vanessa collapsed on the couch, emotionally drained. I sat beside her, and she leaned her head on my shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered, "for coming back. For helping me. I don't deserve it." "Maybe not," I agreed. "But I'm not doing this for you alone. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. And because maybe, just maybe, we can become the sisters we should have been all along." She squeezed my hand, and for the first time in years, the gesture felt genuine. The interview aired 2 days later during prime time. I watched it with my family in the living room, all of us tense and silent. Vanessa came across as vulnerable but strong, sympathetic without being weak. The producers had done an excellent job editing, including the viral wedding video alongside Vanessa's testimony, then showing the text messages Wesley had sent and including interviews with 2 of the other women who had come forward. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour, Vanessa's social media was flooded with supportive messages. The hashtag from the wedding scandal shifted from mockery to support. Women shared their own stories of manipulation and abuse. The narrative had completely flipped, and then things got even better. Wesley's family released a statement through their publicist the next morning. It was carefully worded, clearly written by lawyers, but the message was clear. They were cutting ties with Wesley. They acknowledged that he had serious personal issues that they had hoped he would address, and that they supported Vanessa's decision to end the marriage. They were essentially throwing him under the bus to protect their own reputation. "They're protecting their empire," my father said, reading the statement on his phone. "They don't want to be associated with this disaster." "Which means they won't fight the annulment," Patricia confirmed when I called her. "I've already heard from their attorneys. They're willing to settle quickly and quietly. Wesley will get nothing from Vanessa, and they're prepared to ensure he doesn't contest it." "What about Wesley himself?" I asked. "He's gone silent, deleted all his social media. Apparently he's checked into some kind of wellness retreat in Arizona. His family basically paid to make him disappear for a while." I felt a surge of satisfaction. Wesley had tried to control and intimidate my sister, had humiliated my mother in public, had threatened my family. And now, he was the one hiding, disgraced and abandoned even by his own family. But there was still one more thing I needed to do. That afternoon, I drove to the local news station, where the wedding video had first gone viral. I had called ahead and arranged a meeting with the station manager, a woman named Helen, who had been surprisingly receptive to my pitch. "So you want to do a follow-up piece," she said, leaning back in her office chair. "About you, the sister who wasn't invited. Not just about me. About how families can be toxic, how favoritism damages relationships, and how sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one who ends up saving everyone else." Helen smiled. "I like it. It's a great angle. The forgotten daughter who comes back to rescue her family. Very compelling." And it's true. I pulled out my phone and showed her the text message from my mother, the one telling me not to come to the wedding because I was too awkward. "I have documentation of everything. I can show how this family operated, how I was treated, and how I chose to help them anyway." Why are you doing this? If they treated you so badly, why expose yourself this way? Because I'm done being invisible. I'm done letting other people write my story. And because maybe, just maybe, some other woman who feels invisible in her family will see this and realize she has value too. Helen studied me for a long moment. You know this will make your family look bad. Your mother especially. They made themselves look bad. I'm just telling the truth about it. And honestly, they've agreed to this. They know they need to own their mistakes. Which was true. I had discussed this with my parents and Vanessa the night before. My mother had been resistant at first, worried about her reputation, but my father had surprised us all. Let her do it, he had said firmly. We deserve to be held accountable, and Kayla deserves to be seen. So here I was, agreeing to an interview that would air in 3 days, right after another update on Vanessa's story. The forgotten daughter and the golden child, both telling their truths. The interview itself was cathartic. I spoke honestly about growing up in Vanessa's shadow, about the constant feeling of not being good enough, about being uninvited from the wedding. I showed the text messages. I explained how I had gone to Paris to escape, only to watch my family's perfect day implode from an ocean away. But you came back, the interviewer said. Even after everything they put you through, you came back to help. I came back because my sister was scared and asked for my help, and because despite everything, they're still my family. But I came back on my terms this time, not as the forgettable daughter, but as a capable adult who deserves respect. And have things changed? They're changing. My mother is in therapy. My father is making an effort to be present. Vanessa and I are rebuilding our relationship. It's not perfect, and it won't be fixed overnight. But for the first time in my life, I feel seen by them. What would you say to other women who feel invisible in their families? I looked directly at the camera. You are not the problem. Your value doesn't depend on someone else recognizing it. And sometimes the best revenge is not letting them diminish you anymore. Stand up. Speak out. Take up space. You deserve to be here. When the interview aired, my phone exploded with messages. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. Coworkers told me they had no idea what I had been dealing with. Strangers sent me messages thanking me for my honesty. But the message that mattered most came from Zoe. I'm so proud of you. You're a warrior. I smiled and texted back. Just took me a while to realize it. That evening, my family gathered for dinner at a restaurant, our first public outing since the scandal. People recognized us, but instead of judgment, they offered support. Several women approached to thank Vanessa and me for speaking out. As we sat at our table, my mother raised her glass. To Kayla, she said, her voice thick with emotion, for saving us when we didn't deserve it. To Kayla, the others echoed. I raised my own glass, meeting each of their eyes. To second chances, and to doing better. We clinked glasses, and for the first time in my memory, I felt like I actually belonged at this table. 3 months later, I stood in the doorway of a small conference room in downtown Portland, watching as a dozen women found their seats around the table. This was the third meeting of the support group I had started, a space for women dealing with family rejection, favoritism, and the unique pain of feeling invisible to the people who should love them most. Thank you all for coming, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. Let's go around and share how this week has been. The responses varied. Some women were making progress with their families. Others had decided to step back and create distance. One woman shared that she had confronted her parents about years of favoring her brother, and while it had been painful, she felt lighter afterward. It's like I finally gave myself permission to acknowledge the hurt, she said. And that acknowledgement was its own kind of healing. I nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. My own healing had been a process, not a single moment. The months since the wedding had been filled with difficult conversations, therapy sessions, and painful honesty. But slowly, gradually, my family was changing. My mother had committed to weekly therapy and had actually apologized to me multiple times, not just once in a moment of crisis. She was learning to examine her own behaviors, to understand how her obsession with status and appearances had damaged her daughters. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. My father had started having weekly coffee dates with me, just the two of us, where he actually asked about my life and listened to my answers. He was awkward at first, unused to genuine connection with me, but he was trying. That effort mattered. Vanessa and I were rebuilding our relationship slowly. She had started therapy too, working through her own complicity in the family dynamics and her pattern of defining herself through male attention. We talked on the phone several times a week now, real conversations about real things, not the superficial exchanges we had before. The annulment had been finalized without any contest from Wesley or his family. Vanessa had moved into her own apartment, a modest place she could afford on her own, and was going back to school to finish the degree she had abandoned when she started focusing on finding a wealthy husband. I spent so much time trying to be what Mom wanted that I forgot to figure out what I wanted, she told me during one of our phone calls. I'm 25 years old, and I'm just now asking myself what I actually enjoy doing. Better late than never, I said. As for Wesley, he had quietly settled into obscurity. The wellness retreat had turned into a longer stay, and rumors suggested his family had essentially paid him to stay away and keep a low profile. His social media remained deleted. The few people who claimed to have seen him said he looked diminished, broken even. I didn't waste energy feeling sorry for him. He had made his choices, and now he was living with the consequences. My energy was better spent on building something positive. The support group had grown from my initial idea into something real and meaningful. We met twice a month, and women kept finding us through word of mouth and social media. Some came to a few meetings and moved on. Others became regulars, forming friendships and supporting each other through their family struggles. I had also started speaking at events, sharing my story at conferences about family dynamics and women's empowerment. The awkward, anxious woman who had been told she would embarrass her family was now standing on stages, speaking to hundreds of people and being applauded for it. The irony was not lost on me. After the support group meeting ended, I drove to my parents' house for our now regular Sunday dinner. These gatherings were different from the tense, silent meals of my childhood. Now we actually talked, laughed sometimes, and dealt with conflicts directly instead of letting them fester. "How was the meeting?" Vanessa asked when I arrived. She had come straight from her shift at the bookstore where she was working part-time while going to school. "Good. We had 2 new women join today. That's wonderful." My mother was setting the table, and she looked at me with genuine pride. "You've built something really special, Kayla." "Thanks, Mom." We sat down to dinner, and my father asked about my work at the insurance company. I told them about a promotion I had been offered, a management position that would give me more responsibility and a significant raise. "I'm proud of you, kiddo," my father said. "You've handled everything this year with remarkable grace and strength." "I learned that I'm stronger than I thought," I replied. "Turns out being underestimated your whole life teaches you resilience." My mother flinched slightly at the comment, but she didn't deflect or make excuses. "We gave you every reason to walk away from us completely," she said. "The fact that you didn't, that you gave us a chance to do better, is more than we deserved." "You're right," I agreed. "But people are more than their worst moments. We're all trying to be better. That's what matters now." After dinner, Vanessa and I sat on the back porch, drinking tea and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. We were quiet for a while, comfortable in each other's presence, in a way we had never been before. "Do you think you'll ever fully forgive us?" Vanessa asked softly. I considered the question. I think forgiveness is a process, not a destination. I'm working on it. Some days are easier than others, That's fair. She paused. I'm working on forgiving myself, too, for being so shallow, so complicit in how you were treated. We were both products of how we were raised. You were rewarded for certain behaviors, and I was punished for being myself. We're both unlearning those patterns now. When did you get so wise? I laughed. When I was sitting alone in Paris, watching my family's perfect day fall apart, and realized I had a choice. I could stay bitter and let the pain define me, or I could use it to become someone stronger. I chose the second option. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you came back. Me too. We sat in companionable silence as the stars began to appear. My phone buzzed with a message from Zoe, asking if I wanted to grab brunch next weekend. I smiled and replied yes, grateful for the friend who had been there for me when my family wasn't. As I drove home later that night, I thought about the journey I had been on. From the forgotten daughter to the woman who saved her family from their own mistakes. From invisible to undeniable. From running away to standing my ground. The wedding that I wasn't invited to had become the catalyst for everything that came after. The viral video, the public humiliation, the exposure of Wesley's true nature. It had all cracked open the perfect facade my family had maintained for so long. And in the wreckage, we had found a chance to build something more honest. Wesley faced the consequences of his actions in ways both public and private. His family's statement had permanently damaged his reputation in their social circles. The other women who came forward had given interviews that painted a clear pattern of his abusive behavior. He lost his position at his family's company, lost access to their wealth, and became a cautionary tale about entitled men who think charm and money excuse cruelty. His name was forever linked to that moment of spitting on my mother, a permanent stain on his character that no amount of wellness retreats could erase. The last I heard, he was living in a small apartment in Arizona, working a regular job for the first time in his life, humbled and alone, exactly what he deserved. My mother, too, had faced her own reckoning. Her social media had been flooded with criticism after my interview aired, forcing her to confront how her behavior appeared to others. Several of her friends had distanced themselves, uncomfortable with the truth that had been exposed. She had cried many nights, mourning the reputation she had spent decades building. But in losing that false image, she had gained something more valuable, real relationships with her daughters, built on honesty rather than pretense. She was still learning, still stumbling sometimes, but she was genuinely trying to be a better person and mother. As for me, I had learned that revenge doesn't have to be about destruction. Sometimes the best revenge is refusing to let someone's low opinion of you become your reality. Sometimes it's taking the pain they caused and transforming it into purpose. Sometimes it's standing up and saying, I deserved better, and I'm going to demand it from now on. I had spent 27 years trying to make myself smaller to fit into my family's narrative. Now I was done shrinking. I was done apologizing for taking up space. I was done being the forgettable daughter. I was Kayla, and I was finally fully visible. And that was the sweetest victory of all.